Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Music Podcast, where today I am joined by Mr. Jeremy Asbrock. Jeremy has been a guitarist and vocalist in the Gene Simmons Band, also Ace Frehley solo band for about 6 years, I want to say now, somewhere around there. With his bandmates, Ryan Spencer Cook and Philip Shouse, Jeremy is now making music on his own, part of Rock City Machine Company. They just put out an album on July 28th, a self-titled release. And Jeremy's here to tell us all about it. He's here to talk about a little bit of Gene, a little bit of Ace, maybe even a little bit of the Tummies, if we're lucky, and all the stuff he's got going on. Jeremy, it's great to have you, man.
Thank you. Just call him Dr. Music. Music is his name.
Hey, that's where it's from. You know, one of the few who know.
Philip and I did that song a few times in the rock and roll residency.
Cool. I love it, man. And I first came upon Dr. Music, the song, of course, Blue Oyster Cult. I came upon that watching the Black and Blue show. Black Sabbath Blue Oyster Cult show, classic. And when I heard that Dr. Music song, it stuck with me forever, man.
Love it.
Yeah, it's way cool. Jeremy, this is every interview you do. I know that, and I know kind of your story. But for listeners who don't, take us back to the beginning a little bit. Your upbringing, how you learned to play, all that kind of stuff.
Apparently, I don't really remember this. This was a story my mom told me. My obsession began with the song Dreamweaver.
Nice.
And, the record player was on a bookshelf, and I used to try to climb the bookshelf to put that 45 on. I do remember loving that song, but I don't remember that bookshelf climbing thing. But
and I think this guy right here played on that record, Ronnie Monk.
And so not long after that, around 1978, it might have been spring 79, I've got an older brother. He's 6 years older. So, he would have been, around 10, like his friends, and every 10-year-old then was into Kiss. And the kid that lived behind us came out with the Alive 2 records with no gatefold. I was like, hey, man, I'll
just 2 records.
Yeah. I'll play these 50 cents a piece. I ran in to get some money from mom, and she gave me 50 cents and cats. So, you can buy one. And I went back out, and my brother said, get that one. It has Shout It Out Loud. All right. And then, we went in the house, and I put it on Shout It Out Loud. And, everyone that's familiar with Alive 2 knows when you get to that spot in the record, the crowd is just at fever pitch, and the band kicks in and the bombs go off, and my path was set at that moment.
Look at that. That's a Kiss moment, one of the many for you. And I try to explain that to my kids because we're around the same age. I'm a little bit older, but I grew up. Kiss was, life. It was breath of, it was the air I breathed. I was
kind of a loner in that because, I was about 4 when that happened. So, that was 79. So the next couple years, kids were kind of falling out of Kiss because they were becoming really uncool. But, I did not follow their path. I was still buying those old records,
Yeah, some of my first records, and I got a chance to see them in January of 77. And that was, a life-changing experience, as, it would be for any kid.
I didn't see Kiss until the Creatures of the Night tour, January 30th, 1983.
Okay. Yeah. So, I was 8 years old the first time I saw him, and I'll never forget it. Like I say, life-changing. And I try to explain that to my kids, and because they've had a chance to meet Gene and to meet Paul. And it's, I tell them, I'm meeting, and they've met him twice. We've met Gene twice, and I would have not made it through that as an 8-year-old.
Was Gene in makeup when your kids met him?
He was not.
See, Rory's met Gene a few times. He's met him, without makeup, and that was no big deal. But then he met him in makeup too. And honestly, it still intimidates the shit out of me.
Yeah, he's huge. He is a big dude. And yeah, totally. With the hair and the boots, yeah, he is an ominous figure for sure. But the first time we meet Gene, he's playing with my daughter's hair, and she's, maybe 16. She's like 23 now. So but he's playing with her hair, and we took photos, and we had a small conversation. It was just such a great person. Really, I mean, made her world turn around. And it was, I just looked at it and I thought it was so surreal to me. Because this was a guy that, just like I say, is the impact as a kid. As an 8-year-old, I would have fainted. I would have made it through that.
It's still pretty surreal to me. And I mean, it's kind of my daily life now.
Right.
The gravity of all of that is definitely not lost on me. I'm still very connected to my inner child.
What a thrill, man. It's got to be a thrill to be in that position. And not only Gene, but with Ace and working so closely. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, it's really cool. How'd you learn to play?
Well, as I said, like I was on that path immediately, and I knew I wanted to be a guitar player, and I didn't even know what that meant then. Just I want that, whatever that is, I want it. And the first guitar I got was, hold on one second. Oops, sorry.
No problem.
What was called a Star Maker guitar, and it had one string and like a 1 or 2 inch speaker that distorted, so you could play like Iron Man or Smoke on the Water on that one string. And then the next year I upgraded to a 6-string guitar, and that was Christmas '82, so it was like 7, but I didn't start taking lessons until later that year. And that it was a little bit of a slow process because, you have to learn all the basics, tuning the guitar. This is an E chord. This is a D chord. Right. And then you learn a bunch of stuff that you don't necessarily want to learn, but you have to learn to get to that spot. I wanted to play rock guitar riffs immediately, and you can go straight there. You got to learn the other stuff first.
Yeah. All self-taught?
Oh no, I took lessons from a couple different guys. The second guy I took lessons from wanted to teach me how to read music and play Beatles songs and stuff, which, I wanted nothing to do with at the time. And then, later on, when I was around 18 and became obsessed with the Beatles, I discovered the value in what that guy was trying to teach me. All of my biggest leaps forward were when I started taking guitar lessons from a guy named Pat Kirby, who went to high school with my brother. And, he was like the local rock guitar player guy. And there was a store in town that opened called Chambers Guitars, and he taught for them. And that was where I started making all of my progress.
Awesome. The name for this band, you got Rock City Machine Company. Now, you Google Rock City Machine Company, you come up with some kind
water
of
treatment supply.
Yeah, in Nashville, which is really cool.
They had a building before downtown Nashville became all hotels and, the thing that it is today. Yeah. There was a building on 3rd Avenue, and their name was at the top all the time, that Rock City Machine Company. I just always thought, man, that'd be a great band name. So then, fast forward 30 something years later, we needed a name. We couldn't use the Talisman because Jeff Scott Soto had a band called Talisman. And, honestly, that was really sort of a joke. When we started doing Kiss Expos, we needed a name. We couldn't call ourselves the Gene Simmons Band. We couldn't call ourselves the Ace Frehley Band. Right. And I think it was Philip that came up with that, because it was just like, a nod to Kiss Meets the Phantom and their Talisman. And then we changed the man to men, and it was just supposed to be kind of funny. And then, people caught on, and then, the 3 of us had a name. But, when it came time to release some actual music, we couldn't use it. And Man, you'd be surprised at how hard it is to find a band name that hasn't been used. It's almost
Seriously.
impossible. Even that name had kind of been used apparently by some guys 20 years ago or something, I found out, but they never made it beyond, the local small time status. So
wow. And that was used. Unbelievable.
and I figure as long as the water treatment supply company doesn't get into rock and roll music and we don't get into water treatment supply, nobody has to sue each other.
Now they still exist.
Yeah.
Have you talked to, do they know that you guys exist?
I don't know, but
okay.
I'm not going to go tell them.
Well, I think they'd probably, hang the
I mean, I figure if anything, they're getting business because we use that name. I mean, anybody that Googles us, there is going to be on their radar. And if you're Nashvilleian, maybe you need some water treatment supply.
Maybe. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And you mentioned you guys, Ryan and Philip and yourself, done so much really together. You guys are, a unit, and you got.
I kind of thought original music was the last thing we had to do together. We've had cover bands together.
Yeah.
We played in Gene's band. We played in Ace's band, and like the number one question out all the time is, "Are you guys ever going to do anything original?" And one day I was just like, "Man, I kind of feel like our path together is not complete until we do that."
Mm-hmm.
And then I approached Ryan with it, and Ryan had a good relationship with Marti Frederiksen. Our friend Craig Lindsley had a label called Lindsley Records who was willing to put it out, and I don't know, we just had all of this stuff in place to do it. And I thought we should, otherwise maybe we might always wonder why we never did that, or what it would have been like if we do it. And
yeah, I mean, and it's great to have, something you call your own, kind of. Obviously,
I gotta admit, man, I left the idea of original music behind a long time ago and just kind of thought I'd always make my living playing sideman stuff and being a professional guitar player. And, I didn't imagine with the collective age being around 50 that we'd be putting out new rock and roll.
Hey man, it's great. You guys look great, man. You sound great, for sure. And like I say, you guys are tight. You're playing all the time, so it's all gelled, and there's a chemistry there. So it's hard to say no to that, for sure. Not everybody has that. You notice? I noticed there's you got to have a drummer. I hear drums. What? How do you guys fill the drum throne?
Well, for the record, Marty's son, Evan Frederiksen, played the drums.
Nice.
They kind of share a brain in the studio. Evan was also the engineer. So, they're able to move real fast and they communicate real fast. But as far as, future live gigs, I don't know. We're working that out now. Okay.
Yeah, because you got a lot of drummers at your disposal, I would say, probably, that would love to do this gig. You guys are you're pro. So
the trick is finding somebody who doesn't have their own pro gig.
Right.
If we did want to go do something, they would be unavailable.
Yeah, somebody who's got time, somebody who's just sitting around. There's not too many of those. But that'll be exciting too. To take a drummer friend out, for sure.
Yeah. Now that the getting the record and all of the details involved and putting out a new recording and our release listening party is over, that's kind of the next order of business for this, is getting the live thing together so we can go do some shows.
Sounds great, man. Sounds great. So am I to assume it's not a one-off project?
Not for some of us. Some of us would like to, turn this into a thing that we get to do.
Yeah.
Because, I sort of feel like, all of these classic artists that we all love are, man, they're all in their 70s, man. And they're going to be retiring in the next 5 years or so. And
Yeah.
You know, there's an age range from people that age to even like 20 years younger than me and more even, that want to hear live rock and roll.
Yeah.
And somebody is going to have to be there to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I mean, there's a lot of great new bands out there, but I think they're the classic rock, the Kiss type of stuff or the Aerosmith type stuff, you know, stuff I grew up on for sure.
There's
Is
an expiration date on all of that, and it's just
yeah,
nature.
yeah. And it's kind of sad. It makes me a
It's
little
not
sad.
far away, unfortunately.
Well, that's why, you know, I listened to this Rock City Machine Company album and it hits the spot. You know, I mean, that is right there. That is what
It's and it's all of those bands, you know, and those songs, man. It's Aerosmith, it's AC/DC, it's Def Leppard, it's Van Halen,
yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that's all kind of by design. I mean, it naturally turned out that way also, but you know, we also referenced certain bands.
Yeah. Did you have an intention? I mean, when you said, "Hey, let's do some original material," did you say out loud like we're gonna
No,
let's make it sound like this?
no, we just we wrote every song with Marty, and it kind of turned out how it turned out. I mean, there were certain moments where, you know, like I just said, we'd reference something.
Right.
Like when we were writing the song Summer Song, you know, we all knew that that was kind of a Van Halen-ish sounding thing right off the bat.
Right.
And,
Right.
you know, lyrically, Ryan makes some references, you know.
I mean, it's so organic, and it sounds that way.
Yeah, we didn't have to like deliberately try to do stuff like that. It just naturally came out because that's what we all grew up listening to.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. It's
Thanks.
great. It's I mean and like I say, it's so obvious. It just sounds so natural. It's really cool. Lindsley Records. That's a new name for me. You said a friend, Craig
Yeah.
Lindsley, started that label in 2020, I believe.
Yes. So you know, he was putting out stuff for he put out the Scream record for John Corabi.
Mhm.
There's a few local people that he, you know, put out their stuff on vinyl. Uh, you know, he's just a fan and he's able to do it and able to help. You know, he's not a music business guy even. He's in the science medicine field.
Wow. Wow. Just a big fan. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, we met him backstage at a Gene Simmons Band show in Fort Wayne, and you know, he was doing the stage played bass meeting with Gene, and Ryan discovered that he lived right up the street from him, and you know, we stayed in touch. And you know, during COVID, we were playing backyard acoustic. That's actually how the Talisman started to develop, was playing acoustically in his backyard for these, you know, small gatherings, since you know nobody was really allowed to hang out with each other.
Yeah.
And that was kind of how we evolved as a unit, aside from playing, you know, with Gene and Ace.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. I see an Eric Carr release on there too.
Yeah.
You know, which is another, you know, connection, a degree connection for you, you know, in that Kish tree. And that's
I
a
did meet Eric Carr on the Crazy Nights tour. Kiss did an in-store on that, and I
uh,
actually made it into that. And
uh
so
yeah, that's it's gone way too soon for sure. Big piece of that Kiss puzzle for sure. Tell me about the writing process, man. You got Marti Frederiksen coming in. How, you know, how much did he, what kind of a writer is he? Is he a real ominous kind of figure where he's
well,
gonna generally,
I know why he has a lot of hits. I mean,
he's pretty good at it.
the ideas come to him so easily and so fast. So we wrote everything on Zoom meetings, because while Marty was writing with us, he was also working with Buck Cherry, the Struts, Chris Daughtry, Scott Stapp, another artist, Tuck Smith. He was working with him. He just Aaron Jones. Just man, he's busy, and he's busy all the time. So Zoom was how it worked out best. I'd never written like that before. In fact, like I haven't really written a lot with other people, like in a room and stuff. when I was younger, I used to write more, but it was really just like ideas that come slowly and simmer very slowly, and like, cranking shit out that fast and everybody throwing in ideas. Like I haven't really done a lot of that. And even by the end of that, at a certain point, Ryan and I weren't even sure if we had anything. Like, man, do we even have any songs? I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell. And then when we got together for pre-production to really start piecing it all together, it's like, wow, we do. And this shit's pretty good.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, I mean, anybody would have told you that. And you can see it. I mean, like I say, the way you guys play, how tight you are, and the chemistry there. That's why everybody was screaming for it. You could see that, if these guys got together and wrote something, it would be incredible. Which is,
so now, like, the trick and what we're trying to do is like expand beyond our little fan base that we have, because we do feel like the music is pretty accessible. Like the way we've been talking about it and pitching it to people to work with is like, last year, the stadium tour was the biggest rock tour that happened. And there were 60,000 people a night at those shows who would all enjoy our record. Now, how do we reach those people? Like, we've got our little segment of the Kiss fan base, but how do we get past that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's a question that a lot of people ask themselves.
But if we had even 1% of all of those people, then that's a pretty successful record.
Yes, it is. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, well, I will do the best that I can to get it out there for sure. It deserves to be heard by those people and more. It's a great record. It's a really solid record. I got lost in some of the other stuff that you've done. The Shazam, Flesh Vehicle, the Tummies.
Yeah.
The Tummies, now, a name that comes up in so many other things is Philip Shouse. You played in a lot of different projects with Philip.
So the Tummies is really a husband-wife duo, and the husband, Judd Fuller, was the bass player in the Rock and Roll Residency.
Okay.
And his wife Dana was one of our guest singers, pretty much weekly. So they started writing all these songs together, and they kind of put the band together. And Phil and I were their first choices because Philip and I are both 60s guys. I mean, I know I make my bread and butter off of being this hard rock guitar player, but honestly, my music taste is very British 60s, American 60s,
and that's what the
real song driven, extremely simple guitar solos, and Philip and I speak that language.
Yeah. So it's a cool thing, man.
I love it.
It's got to be fun.
And honestly, the Shazam is not too far off of that. I would say the Tummies are a little more American, and the Shazam is more British.
Okay, yeah.
The Shazam's whole thing, I mean, it's named after a Move album, so British 60s was definitely our wheelhouse.
And that's cool power pop kind of stuff.
Total power pop band. I mean, like, that was like the market that we occupied for decades.
Really, and I crave that stuff a lot. I'm a hard rock guy. I love the heavy stuff. That's what I grew up on. But a band like Jellyfish, I
worshipped at the altar of Jellyfish,
and I still do. I can't stop.
In fact, their box set happened because of the sales of Tomorrow the World by Shazam, I'm pretty sure.
What you think? Wow.
Well, it was on the same label, and we were like the band on the label that
Not Lame, right?
Kind of doing well.
Yeah.
Yes, it's called Not Lame.
Yeah. I knew that name when I came up on the Shazam. I saw Not Lame recorded, and I thought, wow, that's a name I've heard. Yeah, of course, the box set. Yeah. But I miss that stuff. I just love that traditional pop, Beatlesque with amped up Beatles kind of stuff. And it was nice to hear. It was really cool. And it has to be a fun outlet to play. That, and
you don't really have to worry about like all these flashy guitar solo. I don't know. You're playing a song.
Yeah, it's
And it requires a lot of singing too. So like you have to be a musician and not just a guitar player.
yeah,
Or everybody is doing multiple things.
yeah. I was talking with Tyson Leslie, who you probably know.
Yeah, we're good friends.
Yeah. And he told me he was in a Jellyfish cover band at some point. And he said it was one of the hardest gigs, just the layering of the vocal.
Yeah, he and I did the song Joining a Fan Club at one of his rare hairs.
Okay. Yeah, and all that stuff is just so intricate and complicated and so beautiful.
Well, man, especially for Jellyfish, like playing it is difficult and singing it is difficult, but playing it and singing it is really difficult.
Yeah, man. I mean, I had Roger Manning on a couple of times on the show here, and the guy's a genius. I mean, he's an absolute musical genius.
Yeah, like I said, I worshipped at the altar of that band, and then like back in the MySpace days, I sent him a message, and I told him who I was and who I played for, and then he got right back to me, and he was a big fan of the Shazam.
That's it.
I was in Los Angeles a couple months after that, and he invited me over to his house and we hung out for a while. And I mean, like, for me, trying not to act like fanboy, like at his front door, like, can't believe I'm here right now. Holy shit.
And that guy's on so many recordings, and I mean, he brings a toy to an Adele recording. We talked about that, like an old musical toy that makes sound, and he used that on an Adele recording. And all the way to that from Blink 182. I mean, the guy is he's just unbelievable.
Got a lot of records.
It's crazy. It's pretty cool. Yeah. And like I say, I get lost in what you've done. Sandy Gennaro in the Tummies.
Yes.
Another degree to Kiss. Of course, he was in Blackjack with Bruce Kulick. So
it's also a little known fact, and actually, I don't know if anybody knows. I don't even know if I'm supposed to tell you this, but he worked with Peter a lot for the symphony, the Live 4 symphony.
Okay. Yeah. And I think he's credited, actually.
Okay. See, I didn't know if that was a big secret that I shouldn't be telling people, or.
I think so. I think I remember seeing his name on it.
But they're both Brooklyn guys, and I could see, man, I could hear the New York accent coming out with those two talking. I can only imagine. I probably wouldn't even be able to understand half of what they say. No, Sandy's not just like somebody I play with, man. He's a pretty close family friend.
That's great. Yeah, and I like that Blackjack stuff. Michael Bolton, of course, Rock Days, and Bruce. What a great player he is. So much stuff he's done. That was really cool. You've worked with John Corabi, of course.
Yes.
That's but another brilliant guy.
That's actually like one of the real musical feathers in my cap, because man, having to dive into all the guitar tracks on Motley 94 and reproduce that live was pretty challenging.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guitars on that record, and then you have to, we had another guitar player in that lineup when we were doing that record, and just picking out the two most important guitar parts and the ones that work together, and making it sound like that album live, because like they did a couple songs off of it when they toured that record, but they didn't do the whole record.
Right. Yeah.
And for the longest time, I had John and Mick Mars even tell all these people telling me that Welcome to the Numb could not be played live, and I'm like, don't tell me that. Yes, we can is the answer.
That was a not your typical Motley Crue record. Let's just say that. I think it was years ago.
I love John. I miss playing with John. He's a really, really funny dude.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. I saw him, happened to see him with Plush backing up, and Plush, great new female band out there, good friends of mine. And they had a conversation with John, and they were like, you know what he said?
I was just about to say, I'm like, oh God, young girls, I can't imagine what embarrassing thing
I
he
can't
said.
believe what he said. I was like, I don't want to know. They had a blast with him though. It was really cool. Tiffany, do you play with Tiffany?
I've done a couple gigs with her. She lives here in Nashville, and we had been around her socially a couple times. There's like a variety show in town called Guilty Pleasures, and she and I had done Sweet Child of Mine together one time. And
Okay.
her, I'm not sure if they're married, boyfriend or husband. He's British, so there were a couple gigs when he was in England and couldn't make it back over here. So I filled in for him. They were acoustic gigs,
Yeah.
but I'd say she's more of a friend than somebody I play with. I've only played with her a couple times.
Yeah, but I mean that kind of stuff to fill in like that, it just expands your palette, I think. It's just there's so much stuff you can do. It's great. And that's kind of a Nashville thing, it seems.
And that was kind of the theme of the residency, though. The rock and roll residency is, hey, we could do whatever we want. That was the main rule. And our repertoire went from AM radio to new wave of British heavy metal, and those two styles might be back to back in the show. And over the course of 5 years, we did thousands and thousands of songs.
Yeah,
and
man, it's helpful to your playing, right? I mean,
man, by the time we were wrapping up that 5th year, my playing was the best it's ever been. And like, I was actually happy with myself as a guitar player, because most musicians are never satisfied and never think they're where they need to be. But like at that point, I'm like, wow, I'm pretty good.
I'd say, no doubt. One last thing that you've done that I really want to touch on, Minefield.
Yes.
Matt Starr on drums, Todd Dammit Kearns, another guest here.
That wound up being a COVID project. So Brandon Fields, who is, spearheaded the whole thing, I met him at a Shazam show in 2008 or 9. I can't remember. I think it was 2008. And he was a 14-year-old kid. And they had read about us playing Oak Ridge, Tennessee in the paper, and like, oh man. And, this is like just post Guitar Hero stuff when all these young kids got into classic rock. So he and his friend were all into classic rock bands, and they read about us in the paper, and it's name checking all these bands like Cheap Trick and The Who and stuff like that. And they were there when we were loading in, so they helped us carry in our gear. I let him play my guitars and stuff, and just through different forms of social media over the years, he stayed in touch with me and became a great guitar player himself. And then put this thing together, and had the means to hire all of us. And COVID, we didn't really have anything else going on. And man, the quality of the songs is so good that you would never guess that it was written like that. It was written a lot like the Rock City Machine Company record, but not even like Zoom meetings where they're face to face, like him emailing Todd some riffs and Todd writing some words and then just crafting it into songs. I really only wrote one song on that record, and Brandon gave me this one tiny little riff. I turned it into a song, and Alex Kane helped me write the lyrics to it.
Yeah, it's a great record. It's really cool.
And then like we recorded our parts at home and just uploaded them to Dropbox, and then Anthony Fox took it and mixed it, and then you'd never guess it was written so fragmented.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be
recorded that way.
It had to be weird when you got it, and the final product, and we're like, you had to be
awesome.
Like, wow, this is great. Yeah, it really is a cool record, Minefield. Yeah, check it out if you haven't heard it. It's pretty great. Part of Ace's band, you play those classic Kiss songs. Now you've kind of emulated that sound for the project, right? You're playing more of what was played on those records. Out of all the music you've done, though, where do you think you hear your own style of playing the most?
I have no idea. Like anytime, I guess whenever I record music now is when I hear it. And, I don't have a style. I just hear all the guys I listen to. I'm definitely not reinventing the wheel. I'm not creating this new style. I'm just grabbing pieces of all my guitar heroes, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Eddie Van Halen is my number one guy, but I don't hear his playing in my playing at all.
Right.
If anything, it would be in like rhythm parts I create sometimes, but I don't know. I don't really think about that. I just play guitar and come up with something I think sounds cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you play those Ace. I had a chance to see you with both bands, and they're
with Gene. I played. Man, that's not just those guys. That's like pretty much my MO. That was my MO in the residency. Is when people hear cover songs or artists and stuff, they want to hear it the way they know it.
Right.
So that's how I want to play that, because that's what they're going to respond most positively to, is like the way they know it. Like, I'm not interested in putting my own stamp on Ace's stuff if I'm playing with Gene, or if the rock and roll residency is playing all of these, classic deep cuts,
right.
Putting my own stamp on it. I don't know. I wouldn't want to hear that. I want to hear it the way I know it.
Right. Yeah, I've had that conversation with some people where, I hear these covers and, there's especially vocal inflections. You gotta sing more of the sound than the word. You know what I mean? Don't Stop Believing. It's Smokey. It's not Smoky, Smoky Room. You know what I mean? So you can't sing Smoky and have it work. So it's that sort of thing. I think you want to hear it the way was played originally.
Right. And like with Ace, since he plays all the leads and I don't, there's not really any thought behind that. But when we were playing with Gene, I definitely played Ace's leads true to form and like the way people know it.
And it's cool. You get, it's not like you're playing for Gene and Paul. Now Gene and Ace, they have a history. They love each other like brothers, I think. I don't know, but from all the history that they have, they've gone in different directions. Gene is a specific human, and Ace is kind of the opposite human. It's
the only thing those two guys have in common is that they were in the same band.
Right. That's how I kind of say. I watched a whole interview with Gene last night with Pierce Morgan. Really an emotional thing for him, and I think it really showed the human being that he is. But he's a businessman. He runs it like a business, and this is how we see it on the outside, at least. And Ace seems more he wants to have fun when he's doing it, and that's always been the stigma that comes with those two guys. You've been on the inside. You've played with both of them. What's the biggest difference between playing with Gene and playing with Ace?
It's funny. It's actually the complete opposite of what you just said. Gene does like to have fun. We played a different set list every show. There was not one show that was the same. We did 65 different songs over a year and a half. Gene likes to hang out before the show and after the show. He likes to play practical jokes and cut up and bust your balls, and he loves it when you give it back. I mean, the first time I had to give it back, I was scared shitless. Laughed and I'm like, oh, it's okay. And Ace is kind of a creature of habit. We kind of stick to the same set. He shows up. I know he's there because I hear the intro music come on, and I see him. We're going on stage. He gives me one of these and we play. And then after the show, he goes to cool off and then do his meet and greet, and we leave. So there's not that social time with him.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Yeah. See, and that's for the fan, I think that's a little bit of a shock. You would expect that maybe from Gene, where it's a business. I hired you to do a
and we
job.
couldn't get rid of that guy before, like, he always had a separate dressing room from us, but we'd be hanging out in our dressing room and he would come over. I was like, don't you want to come hang out in my room? It's way bigger. And yeah, he likes to hang. He likes to be one of the boys.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and that's great to hear. Because like I say, I've had a chance to meet him twice with my kids, and he's been an absolute gem. Love the guy.
I mean, Ace is great to us. He loves us, and he's just a little private. He's not as, I don't know. He doesn't quite hang out like he used to, and I'm not sure how much of that is to make sure his sobriety stays intact,
Right.
versus just kind of getting older and
Yeah.
and I'm not as social as I used to be either. You kind of get older and you don't
Yeah.
do that much.
Yeah, yeah, he's been around the block a few times, and he deserves all that privacy that he wants, and respect that for sure. And he comes out and does the job. He's been doing great in his sobriety, it seems, and really putting on great shows, playing well. It's really, really cool. Um, have you played the Rock City Machine Company for either of those guys? Would you bring it to Gene and play it for him?
Oh yeah, Ryan had sent him a link to our first single when it came out. He just said, congratulations, great job, guys.
Cool.
I don't know if Ace has heard it. I don't even know if he'd listened to it. Honestly, he's been really busy working on his new record since we've done all that, and I have no idea.
Yeah,
like I said, I don't really see Ace till we go on stage, so I don't even really get the opportunity to talk about it with him.
right.
But I mean, he's worked with Marti Frederiksen in the past, so like he knows Marty, and Marty mixed the last Origins record, and
yeah. Yeah, everybody's worked with Marty, haven't they?
our sound man has been playing the album before we go on stage every night, so I at least know the Ace audience is getting to hear it, whether they know who it is or not.
That's cool. That's cool. And they need to know who it is. Yeah, come on, man. On a personal level, I was just diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which is nothing compared to what you have to deal with. Type 1 diabetic. Is there, and I know you had a scare back in
2019.
Yeah. How difficult is it? Does it prevent you from doing some of the things that you would like to do? You get really under control now.
No, and man, like, with modern science, there are all these gizmos now that you wear, and it, makes it possible to just kind of be normal. I mean,
that's cool. That's cool.
I eat pizza and cupcakes and eat Snickers bars if I feel like it. I don't eat a lot of it, but I'm not one of those people like, oh, I can't do that, I have diabetes. It's just like, well, I don't wear all this stuff on my body to, not live a normal life.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention, and I want to live. I have a very strong will to live, and I've been doing better lately than I have since I was diagnosed with this thing.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Great to hear. Yeah, and it's great to hear that you can. I know it's difficult for a lot.
It's a little weird when you're on stage, and like, I don't know. Some people notice that I always have my phone in my back pocket on stage, but like, it's just so I can check my blood sugar if I need to.
Right.
And there's been times when I look and it's like 68. Holy shit! I need a pound of Gatorade.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Is does it prevent you from hanging out more less than you would want to, or
not at all.
Anything like that, or playing?
I lead a pretty normal life. The only difference is I have to wear all this stuff attached to my body and like count carbs and kind of make sure I don't go overboard. And honestly, like when you start getting older, you don't you need to live a slightly healthier lifestyle anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately. I love
I
my
don't mind it. Like, honestly, I lived on the musician diet prior to that, so it was beneficial for me to learn a little more about the human body. I became a good cook as a result.
yeah.
And, there are definitely a lot of positives that happen due to being diagnosed versus just like, oh God, you have this debilitating disease that could kill you if you're not careful. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's all management,
Yeah. Yeah.
paying attention.
Yeah, and you look in great shape, and that's great. That's always a good thing. I see a bracket, Kiss bracket, that you did, that which was really cool. It was cool.
I got pretty close on that one. Like
I, I like.
doing those things is like a kind of like how much of that is my personal choice and which song do I think would win.
Right.
You got to balance that out.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a really cool concept. I wish I would have thought of that myself. I looked at it, I was like, that's such a great idea. It's really cool. So being a huge Kiss fan, it's a lot of fun. I love seeing Deuce up there. It's got to be great to play it.
What did I pick as the winner? I don't remember.
Deuce.
Okay.
Yeah, Deuce.
Yeah, it's the quintessential Kiss song. It opened their shows, and like it's closed our Ace show the entire time. Like with Gene, we opened with it every show except for one, and with Ace, we closed with it every show.
That's cool. That is really cool. Yeah, and Detroit Rock City was the other choice that you had there. Of course, if you're not going to pick Deuce, you would pick Detroit Rock City. I mean, come on.
Right?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I looked at we saw the Kiss show a couple of years back, and I went with my daughter, and they open up with Detroit Rock City, and it's this huge thing, as I'm sure, as the lights, the explosions, the stuff shooting all over, and smoke and all kinds of stuff, and they come out, and it's just this massive thing, and to have Detroit Rock City playing, being played, is I mean, I look over at her face, and it's just this dumbfounded look. It's so cool to see.
It's funny. They came here in April of 2019, and my oldest son was 4 back then, and that was the last time they were playing Nashville. And I took him, and he was 4,
Right.
And coming back in October for the last time, and now he's going to be 8. And my youngest is going to be 3, and now he knows Kiss too from Scooby Doo and Kiss, and like just from Dad's job and stuff. So we're going to take another family trip to see Kiss.
I love it, man.
So at least my youngest will have that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody should have that. I mean,
my oldest has got a few. I took him on the Kiss cruise one year, so he's got a few Kiss experiences under his belt.
Yeah.
So now we can make the complete family experience.
That's great, man. That's great. And it's it's a family experience. I got 2 older brothers. They took me. They're 7 and 9 years older. And like I say, it changed my life. I'll never forget it. It's a lot of the reason I'm sitting here today like this. And I mean, it's believe it or not, it's family time. It brought everybody closer together. It's a great thing, man. Kiss is a lifestyle, not just a band. It's crazy. I see Hannah Fairlight in the corner here on your screen. Tell me a little bit about that, the young lady.
What do you want to know? I don't. She's my wife, mother of my children.
Yeah, but she's also
talented. She's like a powerhouse. She does a lot of different stuff really well. She plays piano. She plays guitar. She's one of the best songwriters I know. She's acted in movies. She's an awesome mom. I don't know. Babe, what else do you do? She's an audio engineer.
Wow. That's just awesome, man. And that is cool. Have you collaborated? Do you see recording anything together?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we've collaborated. I play guitar for her when she does full band stuff. I've played a little bit on some of her records. she doesn't need my help writing anything.
Maybe you'll call on her one day. Maybe she'll write a Rock City Machine Company song.
It's a distinct possibility.
Look at that. Look at that. That's cool. It's cool to have a musician to bounce things off of, I would imagine, in the house, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. I'm gonna let you get back to your family, and I so appreciate your time, Jeremy.
Yeah, man, no problem.
Awesome, man. Um, if you could have a conversation with any living person, who would that be for you?
Any living person. Whoa. All of my best ones are dead people.
That's not a good conversation.
Probably Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have a publicist that I work with quite often, and she's worked with Paul McCartney. And I told her, I said, he's the bucket list. That's the pinnacle of all music, isn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, the one question I've always had, like, you played with Kiss guys now, like, who else do you want to play with? And that's always my number one, man. Like, not only is he a Beatle, he is the Beatle.
Yes, for me, for sure. It's all about Paul McCartney, that writing style, and amazing. Yeah, for sure.
No, I love Kiss, but the Beatles are my band.
Yeah, and I think at least Gene. I've heard him say
he would absolutely be in agreement with me on that.
Yeah, totally. Tour plans. Anything solid we can depend on?
Yes, there is some Rock City Machine Company stuff happening. We haven't made a formal announcement about it yet, and I don't know if I can do that just yet.
Okay.
But yes, there's going to be some stuff coming up pretty soon.
Awesome. Midwest, Chicago?
No, this thing will be West Coast. Okay. I'm sure we'll get to Chicago and Midwest, but the first thing that we do is going to be like West Coast stuff.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's great to know that you're going to be out there playing this music.
Well, I told you that's the plan. We would love to transition into doing that all the time.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And am I to understand, going back with Gene, Gene's thing's going to end. He's working with Steve. Is Ace working with Steve Brown?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, his whole record was Steve Brown.
Okay. So will you be doing Gene stuff? Do you know?
He asked me.
He doesn't have any plans. That's okay.
I mean, he doesn't have anything concrete right now. I mean, he sent us all a message before he did that thing in May, expressing interest in picking up where we left off after Kiss wraps up. But the thing about Gene is he's got so many different things going on. It's not like we're going to go back out on tour with Gene or anything. We'd probably just do shows here and there. Like, music is Ace's number one thing. Ace plays music. Gene does this and that and then the other. And
yeah. So, but I would love to see in some capacity, man.
My dream scenario would be taking that tour that we did in Australia, which was like Gene and Ace opening for Gene and us backing both of them, man. It's just like, why do 4 cities in Australia get that and everywhere else doesn't? That was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, the being on stage was great. And then Ace would come out and do the last song and Gene set. That was fantastic. But the best part of that was in the airport lounges the next day, because we're all together and watching them hang out and talk about old times and sharing old stories. And
Ace.
Yeah, that was so cool.
See, and the fans don't really realize that happens.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some sniping back and forth since then, but I mean, like they did that all through the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And I mean, it's just like you said, they're like brothers. So,
Yeah. And it's great to hear that, man.
Underneath all that, I know Gene loves Ace and I know Ace loves Gene.
Yeah.
They've got baggage that goes back before I was born.
Right. Yeah, there's just some things that you don't come back from, and that they don't let it hurt the personal relationship that much. They can still hang together and have conversation, which is really cool to hear, man. We love, our bands are a extended part of our family. We don't.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're in a phase right now where all these 70-year-old men are all fighting with each other and
Yeah.
saying stuff about each other in the press. I don't know. It's just like, guys.
Yeah, it's disappointing because we don't want to see mom and dad fight.
Yeah.
It's how it feels. So yeah. Well, it's great to have you. It's great to have you. In positive things, man. So many great things you're doing. And Rock City Machine Company, man.
Yeah, check it out, everybody. It's streaming everywhere. If you don't want to buy it,
absolutely, there'll be links.
If you like it, come buy it. We have some records and CDs we need to get rid of.
Very cool, man. All right, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. Thank Hannah for and the kids. I appreciate your time away from family. I know how important that is.
Oh man, it's the first day of school. This is every parent's favorite day of the year. So I'm not running away. I'm on my time for a change.
How about that, huh? All right, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. No problem.
Yeah, let's keep in touch, and when the tour happens, and come back and see me, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I certainly will.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, man. Take care.
You too.